Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series. Thank you again for taking some time to listen to the podcast as we continue to do our weekly podcast, daily podcasts, I should say. We have them for you Monday through Friday on a regular basis. The focus is always the same, and that's to provide you, the consumer, with as much education information we can in and around real estate to help you make wise decisions. And that will be the continued goal and objective. If you'd like to hear from us, or if you have any topics, I should say, we do get some great ideas from time to time. If there's a topic or something you'd like to hear us discuss or bring up, be sure to do that. A couple of different ways you could reach us. One is going to the website at reradiolive.com. Or you could call me at 408-838-9060. And again, just a reminder before we get started, if you need anything in the area of financing with a purchase, a refinance, or restructuring any kind of finances at all, you could reach me at 408-838-9060. Or, again, go to reradiolive.com. Today's topic is going to be what other alternatives do you have to selling your home? We did several shows back several months ago on this topic, and it was one of the most popular ones. A lot of feedback when we were doing the live radio shows and also the podcasts on this topic. Quite frankly, one of the reasons is that there's a lot of people in the Bay Area that have owned a home for quite some time, and in some cases they have a lot of equity. Let's just say, for an example, they've had their home for 25, 30 years, and they have maybe a small loan on it or no loan at all, and the home's worth $1.5 to $2 million. You get excited thinking, gee, it'd be great to sell it, and then with all that equity, but then quickly you realize that there's some downside to selling it. One is that if you're single, or depending on each person gets the initial $250,000 exemption from taxes, so if you're a married couple, you get $500,000. And then let's say it was worth $1.5 million, and if you sold it, that $1 million would be taxes. It would be taxed. It's expensive. So then all of a sudden you quickly start realizing that maybe it doesn't make sense. This happens a lot, and so it has a lot of people baffled trying to figure out what else can I do to access money or capital from my house, or keep it longer, or avoid taxes. And these questions come up all the time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some alternatives. One, of course, is if you need to access capital and you have all this equity in your home, you could certainly get a home equity line, or you could refinance and pull cash out. Some of those are pretty simple and straightforward to understand, and that's fine. Depending on the payment, or maybe you're getting older and you don't want increased payments, or maybe you don't want the liability that goes along with that. So some people, depending on the age, 62 or older, have the ability or the option to consider reverse mortgage. And we'll do other shows on those specifically, but a reverse mortgage is just what it says. If you qualify and you have the equity, in this case this person would, you could get up to a mortgage. Typically, sometime you get as much as $625,000. What happens, though, is there's no payment on that. So in this case, let's say this person's home is worth $1.5 million. They owe very little. And let's just say they get a reverse mortgage and they take a couple $100,000 out, and now they owe $417,000 on the home. And it's a reverse mortgage. Best part about the reverse mortgage is there is no payment. So what happens is that $417,000 builds principal each month. And I'll give you an example. Let's say the payment on that was $1,500. And since the homeowner is not making the payment just gets added, the principal gets added to the loan amount every month. And that's why the name reverse mortgage. So it just really works reverse the way a normal forward-working mortgage does. So you're building and you're adding principal to your balance as you go forward. Now, that's not a bad thing, honestly, if you're in their 70s or 80s and maybe you're short on cash and you don't have much for retirement or maybe pension or Social Security. There's some people that it works really well for. So a reverse mortgage is another alternative. And that's something, if you want more detail, be sure to contact me and we can go into more. So that's one. The other one is, I'd mentioned cash out, a home equity line. That's another alternative. One of the other things that I want to talk about that people are starting to entertain, and initially it sounds a little maybe interesting or, boy, can I really do that? But some people now are thinking about renting their home and going to live somewhere else, or maybe I gave this example several times. I have a few clients that have decided to rent their home, for instance, and because where their home is in Los Gatos, they're getting, I believe, about $10,000 or $11,000 a month for rent, and they owe very little on it. So what they've done is they went and got themselves rented a condo by the beach in, I think it was Monterey or Capitola, one of those areas. And basically their renter is paying for them to rent their condo in near the beach while their home is being rented out. And then they're going to decide what to do afterwards. So this is another good plan. If you have a lot of equity in your home and you can rent it out for positive, think about the possibility of going to move or rent somewhere else, someplace you really enjoy. Maybe you like the mountains. Maybe get a home in the mountains for a year, or somewhere near the beach, or maybe the snow, the desert, the wine country, all kinds of different places you might be able to rent. And then it gives you a little time to figure out what you'd want to do with your primary residence without having to take those tax hits. So that's the third. The other option is at the end of, let's say, 2 years, or if you get to 2 years, if you do rent your place out and you show that on your tax returns and it becomes a rental for that period of time, you can then convert that to a 1031 exchange. So now this becomes a more interesting play for you. It's an alternative. So now guess what? If you sell that home, you could take the $1 million and you could move it and you could purchase one other property. You could purchase multiple properties. You could purchase commercial properties. You could take that $1 million and reinvest it in properties without any tax at all now that you've converted that and it's deemed a rental property now. So that is one of the benefits that you could also do. And it's interesting. Some people are starting to really think about this and make this a consideration. Again, if you rent your home out for 2 years, it becomes an official rental property. You can sell it and then take that $1 million instead of taking a tax hit. You could reinvest that $1 million into one or more properties. And remember, you could invest in commercial properties too. Now, some people are starting to think about this. And it depends on where you have your assets, how much retirement you have. There's a lot of variables that go into that. But think about if you don't really need that $1 million and you want to take that big tax hit on it, and you have some flexibility on where you live and what you could do, kind of a neat idea. Again, take the $1 million, reinvest into one or more properties and or commercial. So that's the fourth thing you could do. And of course, the other one is to think about leveraging your property to either buy other properties or do something. And I'll give you an example of that. One would be you own your primary residence. Again, we're talking about the same one for the example of our conversation here in the topic, and that is you take $300,000 or $400,000 out and you buy a second home somewhere, or you buy. I've seen people do this too. They take equity out of their home while they're still in it. They're not paying taxes on that, so then they'll go buy a piece of land somewhere where they want to retire. So you take $200,000 or $300,000 out. You purchase the land, maybe somewhere where you want to retire 5 or 6 years from now, and then you still have that ability. You're not going to get dinged on those until, again, you sell the house. So that becomes your home. Really what it does is it becomes a use for potential capital to invest some of these things that you could do in advance. And these are some ideas to really think about, talk to your financial planner about, talk to your CPA about. I would always encourage those that are listening, before you make any kind of moves like this, you'll always hear me say, consult with your financial planner, your CPA, obviously family members, people that could help you, close people that you have relationships with that might give you some good advice as well. So those are the 5 or 6 things that one could do other than selling their home. Those are alternatives to selling your home, using the capital in your home and doing some different things with your home before you sell it and takes those tax consequences. There's some other things too. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, there is probably another 4 or 5 things that you may not ever know existed that you could do, rather than selling your home. We're going to talk about some charity, and we're also going to talk a little bit about some loan programs that might, other than reverse mortgages, that might give you a less payment or minimize your payments and give you some more flexibility as well to do that. Okay, before we take a quick break, just a reminder, once again, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to have you give us a review. If you go to reradiolive.com or go to iTunes, give us a review, tell us what you think. We would appreciate that very much. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back to continue in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com.
Hi, this is Joe Cucchiara of Real Estate Radio Live. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We are your go-to resource for all aspects of real estate, including buying, selling, refinancing, building, and legal and tax advice, and much more. You can subscribe to Real Estate Radio Live podcast on iTunes and Stitcher to listen to an engaging discussion about anything and everything real estate. So make sure you get our app, RE Radio Live, in the iTunes store to follow the show.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live, the podcast series. Today our topic is other alternatives to selling your home. Just a reminder, too, as we transition into that in this conversation again, if you need any information on financing, if you need some help with a referral partner, if you need a real estate agent, financial planner, CPA, legal advice, anything in and around real estate, please be sure to contact me. I can help you with any of those referrals. We have a host of people who have as our kind of a network of group of people that we work with, and we would trust as trusted referrals for you if you need that. You can contact me at 408-838-9060, or again, go to reradiolive.com. All right, we will continue talking about alternatives to selling your home. What other things? Real quickly, in the first part of the podcast, I talked about some of the things you could do. You could pull equity out of your home, take cash out, do a home equity line to access money. You could do a reverse mortgage. There's also people that are considering renting their home out and then going to rent somewhere else temporarily to see if they like it or not, or if they want to sell their house so they could offset some, not be hit with those taxes. The other option is then to rent your place out, and it becomes a rental. And then you take that money when you could sell your home then and take the equity in that home and purchase other properties, either one or multiple properties or commercial, and not be hit with that tax. That you would just prolong the tax on that. Once it became a rental, then there was a 1031 exchange. You could perform that. And then you could continue to grow assets that way, and again, not get nailed on the taxes until such time that you wanted to sell and keep that money and not keep reinvesting. that was the other one. And the couple of other things I wanted to cover before, as we're using these examples, is interest-only loans. This is something that were frowned upon by some people, but interest-only loans are actually really, really good if you understand them and you understand why you're getting them, how you could use them, and if they're what I call as cash flow programs. That's what I refer to them to as interest-only. Interest-only means what it just says. So typically you can, if you wanted to, get an interest-only loan. Typically they're on a ARM product, so a 5-1, 7-1, 10-1 ARM. What that means, instead of paying a principal and interest payment, let's say you have a loan of $400,000. Let's say your principal interest payment, again, just for sake of example, is $1,800. And instead of doing a principal and interest loan, you get an interest only, and now your payment's $1,200 a month. And so there's $600 of principal that is not going to principal, and you're just paying an interest-only payment. This is similar to a credit card when you pay the minimum payment, if you're familiar with that. So if you get your credit card bill and it says minimum payment $75, but if you pay that $75, you're just paying interest, this is the same thing as an interest-only on a larger scale for a resident. So if you had an interest-only loan, you would only be paying interest. You would not touch the principal for 5, 7, or 10 years. Now, someone might say, that's terrible because I'm not paying in a principal. But it depends on why you're getting the interest-only loan. Here's where I see people benefit from interest-only loans. One is that they're a business owner, small business owner, or they like the idea because, they run their business, the idea of cash flow. They like the idea that they don't have to make principal payments, but guess what? You can make principal payments without penalty with those types of loans. So you do see some of the benefits there. I also see very wealthy people that manage a lot of money and that are doing very well for themselves. Believe it or not, I see a lot of very wealthy people take interest-only loans. And someone might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they be wealthy if they're taking a loan like that? Because the perception is it's not a smart loan. But that's not correct. What you'll see with a lot of people that know how to handle money and the ins and outs of money, they may take an interest-only loan because they like the idea of using cash in other ways with investments. Maybe instead of that $600 or $800 a month they would be making towards principal, they put it in different investments, or they do different things with that money to make them money in other areas. Now, I know, again, that sounds a little strange for the traditional person that says, I want to get a loan and pay it off and pay principal and pay interest and pay it off, and that's fine. But these interest-only programs are really referred to as cash flow programs. That's the way I would consider them. Now, if someone is interested in interest-only loan, when they ask me about them, what I'll do is I'll ask questions. Why are they looking at an interest-only loan? What is the purpose of it? What are your plans? What are your goals for the property? Is there a reason? One of the other reasons I see people take interest-only loans is they know they're not going to be in the home for the next, say, 3 to 5 years. It's another great idea. Let's say you have, let's say your home's worth $1.5 million and you owe $200,000 or $300,000 on it, maybe less or more. And you know for a fact that you're going to sell your home in 2 or 3 years, for example. So the goal is not to pay that loan off. You're not going to be in that house for another 2 or 3 years, after another 2 or 3 years, I should say. So some people will say, hey, let's go with an interest-only loan, Joe. I have a ton of equity in my property already. It's not going to make a difference. In the next couple of years, I could put that, what would be a principal payment, into my 401k or retirement or some other investment vehicle, and I could start earning, get earnings on something in another direction instead of paying down my mortgage. It's not always the best thing. I know this is going to sound funny. It's not always the best thing to accelerate or pay down your mortgage at a certain time period. I know conventional thinking is that, at one point you want to pay off your house. And I think most people do, most of the time. But there are a lot of people that manage money very well and are very successful that I'll hear them say that, as long as I'm working or as long as I have some kind of income, even the retirement income, and depending on what kind of income I have, I'll continue to have a mortgage. And that'll surprise some people, but when you think about it, there is some strategy behind that. If you're still in your 60s and your 70s and you still have a business or you're slowing down but you're still making a fairly good income, guess what? That write-off, as it is right now, your interest on your mortgage and your property tax, those are 100% tax deductible. So if you've slowed down and you're still older but you're still making a pretty good income each year, and all of a sudden you aggressively pay off your mortgage and now you have no tax write-off for a mortgage, that's not necessarily a good thing for some people. For some it might be. But these are the reasons why people take these types of loans. And this is another alternative to selling your home. So the interest only. The last one I'll talk about, which is really very unique, and you need to really get more details on it. I am certainly not an expert at it, but I know that people do it. There is a way that you could take your property actually and sell it, and put it into a charitable trust or use it for charitable reasons to offset taxes or to avoid taxes as well. I don't know the details behind it, but I've had a couple of people I've interviewed that specialize in this type of thing. And there are some creative things, some creative ways that you could avoid taxes sometimes by doing that as well. So that's really kind of a review of, I've mentioned really 7 or 8 different things that one could do as alternative to selling their home. So what the point I want to get across before we finish up today, no matter what you do, before you do it, plan the best you can. Sit down, figure out what you're trying to accomplish. I always tell people put the pen or the pencil to paper, and the reason for that is because it's not emotional. Sometimes when you think about something or you talk to someone about something, it could be, a dream or a vision or a thought, but it could turn into something emotional. When you're making a financial decision, try to take the emotions out of it. Even though you will have emotions, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to, at one point, before you make one of these big decisions, you want to sit down and put the pen or pencil to paper to make sure that the numbers work. The numbers won't lie. If there's a certain purchase, if there's a certain tax liability, if there's something that's real, then it's real. So whether you feel emotional about it or not, it is real. So I would encourage you, before you make any decisions like this, figure out what the best plan is, what your goals, objectives. And then when you do, sit down, hopefully, or get a meeting or with your financial planner if you have one, a CPA if it's necessary, and just make sure what you're doing is the right thing to do. Because these are some big decisions, and it's one of those things I'll tell people all the time. Don't think in some cases you're overthinking. You certainly can do that. Be careful of that. But I'm a big believer in is exhausting all your options, discussing them, writing them down, thinking about them. And then when you make the decision, at least you can't, or at least typically you won't come back and say, boy, I wish I would have thought about that, or I wish someone would have shared that with me. I didn't know that. And those are the kinds of things you want to avoid before making these big decisions. All right, I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, the series will continue. Every day we're out with you on podcast. The show today was what other alternatives you have to selling your home. Remember, if you need any information at all on the real estate side, give me a call, 408-838-9060. Visit the website at reradiolive.com. Take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.